From Faith Forward Media, this is Healthcare Musings. I'm Dr. Hesham Hasabala. Hey everybody, Hesham Hasabala here, happy to have you with me. So another episode of Journal Club. This time we're reviewing an article published in the New England Journal of Medicine on October 31st that compared intraosseous to intravenous vascular access for out-of-hospital cardiac arrest. So when somebody has a cardiac arrest, when their heart stops, it is of the utmost importance that you establish access to the venous system so that you can inject drugs to try to revive the heart, to resuscitate the heart. And so there's two ways to do it. You can put a catheter in a vein, which during a cardiac arrest can be difficult because there's no blood flow, right? The heart has stopped and you're doing external compressions. So the circulation is compromised. And many times the patients themselves are dehydrated and their veins aren't easily found. And when you're doing CPR, that also moves the body and shakes the body, and it makes establishing vascular access quite difficult. And so another way to get into the vascular system is to insert what's called an intraosseous catheter. And it's a drill, literally. It's actually cool to do. It's a drill that you drill into either the head of the humerus in the shoulder, in the arm, the top of your arm, or in the tibial plateau in your leg. And it goes right into the bone marrow. And that is theoretically like a catheter in the vein, in the venous system. And so it's much faster. You just drill it in and it goes right in, and you establish vascular access that way. And so theoretically you would think, well, if you can get an intraosseous, and we are told that it's just like a central line, just like a catheter that goes right above the heart. And so these study authors, I think it was out of Denmark, I believe. Yes, in Denmark. They randomized people who had out-of-hospital cardiac arrest to either try to get intravenous access versus intraosseous in the bone, and to see do they have. And so their primary outcome, their primary outcome was a sustained return of spontaneous circulation. So how does the intraosseous versus intravenous group, does their heart start beating faster or not? And then they had other secondary outcomes. The key secondary outcomes were survival at 30 days, and then survival at 30 days with a favorable neurologic outcome, defined by a score of 0 to 3 on the modified Rankin scale, which is a scale that you can measure neurologic outcome. And so what they did was they had 1,506 patients that underwent randomization, and 1,479 were included in the primary analysis, 731 in the intraosseous group, and 748 in the intravenous access group. And in the intraosseous group, successful establishment of vascular access within 2 attempts occurred in 92% in that group versus 80% in the intravenous group. Okay, so then more people got intravenous access successfully within 2 attempts. Now, did more patients have return of spontaneous circulation? And it was the same. So sustained return of spontaneous circulation occurred in 30% of the intraosseous access group versus 29% in the intravenous access group. And that was not statistically significant. At 30 days, 12% of the intraosseous group were alive versus 10% in the intravenous group, with a risk. So they had a risk ratio of 1.16, meaning that a 16% higher chance of being alive, but this was not statistically significant. The confidence interval crossed 1. A favorable neurologic outcome at 30 days occurred in 9% in the intraosseous group and 8% in the intravenous group. And again, 16% increased chance, but that was not statistically significant. So at the end, their conclusions were there was no significant difference in sustained return of spontaneous circulation between the IO versus IV group, and there were similar number of patients alive and similar number of patients that had a favorable neurologic outcome at 30 days. When I went into the study, so then it doesn't make a difference, right? What's interesting when you look at the data a little bit more closely, you find that the I'm trying to look at the time to the first dose of epinephrine. Okay, so if you look at the median, they broke down the group, both groups in different ways, right? So according to the trial group assignment, the median dose to first epinephrine injection was 15 minutes in the IO group and 15 minutes in the IV group. Then they looked at, okay, how about patients who underwent any attempt at vascular access? Same thing, 15 minutes versus 15 minutes. Then they looked at how about only the patients who underwent attempts at vascular access according to trial group assignment, 15 minutes to 15 minutes. So it's interesting that it took them 15 minutes to get the first injection of epinephrine. That seems to be a very long time. And if you establish, successful vascular access, right, theoretically, you have the cardiac arrest, you're getting everything set up, you get the IO, you inject the IO, and then you give the epinephrine right away. That seems like a really long time to the first dose of epinephrine. It was 15 minutes. And so I wonder, did that have anything to do with the lack of difference in outcome, right? Because, again, theoretically, if you get vascular access sooner, you should get epinephrine sooner. The other thing is, since they had similar outcomes, is it because the epinephrine wasn't circulating, right? So it really doesn't matter what you get, if you get an IV or an IO. If the drug doesn't circulate, then similar number of patients get ROSC, and then similar number of patients are alive, and then similar number of patients have a favorable neurologic outcome. So if you look, they did a forest plot, and I'll put a link to the study in the show notes. They put a forest plot, and all of the dots favored IO, right? For risk difference for sustained ROSC and the risk ratio, but all of the confidence intervals were wide, and so they crossed 1, which means that the findings were not statistically significant, right? So it's interesting. You would think theoretically that IO should be better, but they didn't find this in the study. And my only caveat is that it took 15 minutes to get the median time to get the first dose, and the ranges were anywhere between 12 and 20 minutes. That seems to me to be a really long time. Like if you look at the ranges, 12 to 19 in the IO versus 12 to 20 in the IV, that seems to be a very, very long time. And so maybe if you get IO and then you put epinephrine within the first couple of minutes, would that make a difference? I don't know. I don't know if they're going to do another study or whatever. But I found this very interesting, and I hope you did too. Thanks so much for your time and attention. And until next time, this is Dr. Hashem Hasabala signing off on Healthcare Musings. Thank you for listening. Sign up at healthcaremusings.com to get every episode delivered directly to your email. And please don't forget to leave a 5-star review. Thank you so much.